إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله حق تقاته ولا تموتن إلا وأنتم مسلمون. يا أيها الناس اتقوا ربكم الذي خلقكم من نفس واحدة وخلق منها زوجها وبث منهما رجالا كثيرا ونساء واتقوا الله الذي تساءلون به والأرحام إن الله كان عليكم رقيبا. يا أيها الذين آمنوا اتقوا الله وقولوا قولا سديدا يصلح لكم أعمالكم ويغفر لكم ذنوبكم ومن يطع الله ورسوله فقد فاز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد فإن خير الحديث كتاب الله وخير الهدي هدي محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم وشر الأمور محدثاتها وكل بدعة ضلالة وكل ضلالة في النار. Dear brothers and sisters, today I will do the topic of my khutbah will be about thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be thankful to Him for all the bounties and favors that He has bestowed upon us. That will be the topic of my khutbah today. But it is very important to know the importance of not being ungrateful and thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. On the day of Ashura, I had done a khutbah speaking about the day of Ashura and the differences between the companions and how the companions are essential, and how Hassan radiallahu anhu reconciliated between two sides of the Muslims. And then I repeated the creed of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah regarding all these disputes and the importance of loving the Sahaba. And then I mentioned all the divisions after between Banu Umayyah, how their generals, they advised and they were sacked, and all the divisions that happened. And then I said that we should not look after power and we should bring unity. Then in the next khutbah I've done after a few weeks, I said we should not seek power, but we should seek to be an imam. And we explained all the verses in which the prophets, they invoked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make their children's imams of good. Rabbana hablana, make our children imams of good. And then I mentioned in my latest khutbah the divisions between the different schools of thought and how we should understand them and the importance of ittiba. Because we should love the Prophet ﷺ, but not only loving him, sending salutation upon him, reading his seerah, loving him for all his sacrifices for Tawheed and all the struggles he did to bring us the Risala, the message of Tawheed, and all the regulations of Islam, the perfect system of life, the system of justice. But we should make him our ultimate role model, and we should respect the scholars, but make the Prophet ﷺ the final authority. And we mentioned historically what happened between Muslims, how the different schools of thought, the imams, they were free of the sectarianism. Shaykh al-Islam Ahmad ibn Taymiyyah, he wrote in his book Raful Ayman Anil Aima, and likewise Nawab Siddiq Hasan, he wrote as well a book in Arabic, Jabal Manfa fi Dhab Anil Aima al-Arba'a. So meaning the four imams, they did not tell their followers and students, don't pray behind each other, it's makruh to pray behind each other. The level of hatred which even went that some followers of some schools, they made false hadiths, cursing Imam Shafi'i, saying, inventing false hadiths that a man will come in this ummah who will be more dangerous than Iblis, and it's Muhammad ibn Idris. So even the followers of one mazhab, and we all know the severity of lying upon the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. It's worse than any other sins, because you are guaranteed hellfire making a false hadith. But the followers of some of sectarian bigots, they invented false hadiths just to tarnish their other Muslims. Some of them, they say it's makruh to pray behind the others because they have different rulings of purification for water and blood and what conditions. So we spoke about all of this, and we said the Sahaba, they differed as well. Some of them understood the same hadith differently, and we all know the hadith of Banu Qurayda, not to pray Asr before you reach their place. And the Sahaba, they differed how to understand it. Is it metaphorical or take the literal meaning? So some, they delayed Asr prayer until Maghrib, the others, they prayed and they said. So likewise, the companions differed on many other issues. Some took some hadiths, they thought they were abrogated. Some they reconciled different hadiths, different manners. These are all valid opinions of differences. And the layman, what we said, the layman, he has no attachment, he has no madhab. This is the opinion of the late, most of the late scholars, that the layman, he can ask any of the scholars. And this is what happened at the time of the Sahaba. People used to ask Abu Bakr, Umar ibn Masud, Abu Huraira, whoever they will find, when they had a question, they will ask. They will not say, oh, I'm Siddiqi, I am Faruqi, I am Uthmani, and I am Alawi, and my daughter, she's only going to marry Uthmani, it's makruh to pray behind. And they had differences, on all these issues, the tabi'in, and how to interpret, how to reconcile, because sometimes they are contradicting a hadith. Like if you touch your private parts, does it break wudu or not? There are two different hadith. But the scholars, they say, one said, okay, this one maybe comes after, so it abrogates. Others, they try to reconcile them. They say if it's done with desire, shahwa, else if you touch your private parts, it won't break your ablution. Likewise for vomiting, for many other, what quantity of water, if impurity falls into it, it is tuqula, it is, these are all valid opinions. And if the other imam has a different opinion, it is one of the greatest innovations that happened in the Muslim world is to make 4 congregations in the same masajid in Sham, Misr, and in the Haram. And what the most shocking regarding it is that all the main 3 schools of thought, meaning Hanafi, Shafi, and Maliki, they say that it is not allowed to have 2 congregations in the same masjid if you have a regular Imam Ratib. If it's a masjid of the street, on the motorway, you can have different. But they say if a masjid has a regular imam, you are not allowed to have to, if people come late, they should pray separately. Only the Hanbali school of thought, they say, the other who came late, they can do a jama'ah. So, but for this issue, they broke their own school's rule, but they say, because of maslaha, now it is allowed, it's better the Shafi pray. And Sheikh Albani, we all know that he, his father was Hanafi, and in Sham, he's starting praying behind the Shafi, and his father was very angry with him. So this is 100 years ago, this was the common issue. In the same masjid, Hanafi, Shafis, they won't pray, they won't marry each other, and they say it's makruh to marry each other. So this is why we focus on the topic of ittiba. And today we will, in the khutbah today, why all these issues are very important. Because when we see the news, what is happening in India, not only in India, in the Rohingyas, what is happening to the Muslims in China, what is happening in France, with Macron making new laws for the Muslims, even in private swimming pools. Now they're saying the Muslim can't rent private houses with swimming pools because it's against the Republic. While the Constitution, the newspaper Le Monde said, what if you're renting an Airbnb private house with a swimming pool, it has nothing to do with the state. It's not a school, it's not a public swimming pool. But just to gain votes for the next election, they're making rules which don't make any sense. And what's happening in India, people are cementing hatred against Muslims for votes, and they're forbidding Muslims to wear headscarf. We all have seen on social media the viral video of the sister Muskan Khan, who defied the Hindu Vata, and she said, Takbir, and I will wear hijab, and I will take education. So whatever we sing around the world, it is very important, brothers, that we remind that all the political division, all the different schools of thought, they should not divide us. Obviously, we can, have argumentation and say, look, my opinion, write a book that raising the hands before and after ruku because of this. Scholars, they've wrote about this, but in a polite manner, and these divisions, they did not break their bonds of brotherhood. So this is why it was very important to remind of this topic. So then we can understand that despite what is happening to the Muslims, to system in India, the Hindu Vata, we should always thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why I will start my next topic. Despite we are being oppressed in France, many other European countries, new laws are made to criminalize, to prevent Muslims worshipping. But we have to see in the history what happened. This is nothing, because we should thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are free to practice our faith. The Sahaba, they were tortured for it. Bilal, Musab ibn Umar, just we can still practice though people are trying to put preventions, trying to forbid hijab, try to forbid halal slaughter in Belgium and other places under the name of animal safety, whatever. But alhamdulillah, we should always be thankful, and we should have a total trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He is in charge of the affairs. And this, thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the favors He has given to us, this will give us the strength and energy, like Muskan Khan, to face our challenges, to face these nationalists, to all work together despite differences. We can't neglect differences on some creedal issues, especially fiqh is less important, but at least on political issues, like I said in one of previous khutbah, all the different schools of thought, they work together for independence, and Maulana Abul Kalam Azad became the Minister of Education in India. So the Muslims, they need to be active, not only in England, in India, in all the countries, to defend their right. But with activism, we must first have a complete reliance, a complete understanding of Islam, and we must have thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the favors. And the greatest favor upon us is that He made us Muslims. He made us people of Tawheed. He made people who take the Prophet ﷺ as their ultimate guide. And this, understanding these matters of Tawheed and Ittiba, and understanding all of these, this will, correcting our creeds, make it stronger. It will help us facing the Hindu Vata. It will help us, lobby better against the Chinese government, against doing petitions. So this is why we should always thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Despite what is happening to us, the people of Ashabul Ukhdud, they were burned alive, but they did not renounce their Tawheed. So what we're facing, though we're facing challenges, we're facing laws, but we should always thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we have illnesses, if we have people who passed away during the last few years because of COVID, many scholars passed away. But despite this, we should always thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like the Prophet in his lifetime, many of his companions, Hamza, his daughters passed away, his son passed away, but he always faced with patience all these articles. So my khutbah today is about thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And many of the verses, they tell us the importance. Despite difficulties, despite afflictions, in all cases, we must always thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, وَمَا بِكُم مِّن نِعْمَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. Whatever you have of bounties is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah in Surah Nahl, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the same surah, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ لَا تُحْصُوهَا. If you enumerate the bounties of Allah, you will not be able to encompass them. We can never thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for all the favors He has given us. But in order for these bounties to have the desired effect upon us, we must first realize that we have been given many bounties and blessings in our lives. We must acknowledge it. Secondly, we must realize that all these bounties came from Allah and only from Allah. This is the most important. When we thank Allah, we give thanks to Him for all the favors He has given to us, we must rely on our heart and connect our heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that He is the only source who can bring us good harm. All these Modis, all these Jabbar fil ard, they're nothing. All these people, Pharaoh and Qarun, they're all gone. So once we have this strong linkage in our hearts to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, fear of Him, love of Him, all the other challenges, inshallah, will give us the strength. Like our sister Muskan Khan, like 10, 15 Hindu Vatas, and she did not fear any of them. And she stood for her religion, for the obedience to Allah and His Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And third, we must realize that in all these bounties, we are completely dependent upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. As long as we don't link our strengths or our resilience to us, but to the one who gave us these bounties and these powers, then inshallah we will be successful. Because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala He's no need of bestowing all these bounties. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhan nasu antumul fuqara'u ila Allah wallahu al ghaniyul hamid. O mankind, it is you that is in need of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But Allah is the one free of all wants in Surah Fatir. So once we understand that we are fuqara, we are poor people, and Allah is we are dependent on Him for the next breath, for our every movement, we are dependent upon Him. Then once we correct our belief, we establish Tawheed, then in the society, Tawheed will be established everywhere. Not only as a complete, the result of Tawheed will be a complete system of justice in all the fields. Like I said in my previous khutbah, in all the fields we need to work hard. But once the source is corrected, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us success for our political challenges, for all our militant work. And sometimes we read verses of the Quran, but we need to meditate on the meanings. 100 years ago, many of the people, they were not able to read and write. Nowadays, alhamdulillah, the Quran has been translated in Urdu, Persian, Farsi, Eastern European languages, and in Gujarati, all the languages. So the layman before, they did not have access. They only went to the khutbah, listened to the imam reciting few verses, but they themselves know so many Quran and tafsir are printed. So alhamdulillah, we have more, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have given us more chance to link our hearts to Him and to understand the issue of Tawheed, that we are poor people. And this is what all the prophets, they always reminded us, that once we read the Quran, which people before did not have access to, even some, they were discouraging people to read the Quran and translate it 200 years ago in India. But Shah Waliullah, he translated it, and it has a great effect among the layman to understand these issues of Tawheed. That it is not your spiritual leader who provides you food. It is not your spiritual leader who provides you health. It is only Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is why you need to respect scholars and saints, but the ultimate source, the one who gives you all these issues, it's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Once you read the Quran and you read the dua of Prophet Yunus in the Valley of the Bail, you read the duas of Prophet Musa complaining about his poverty and his lack of power. You read all the duas of the Prophet complaining about the lack of knowledge of some matters, like Prophet Sulaiman did not know about Hudhud, or Prophet Isa alayhi salam in Surah Ma'idah, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked him, Isa, son of Maryam, did you say to the people, take me and my mother as gods beside Allah? And he said, glory, may you be exalted. I would never say what I have no right to say. After, in the next verse, he said, I have not told them anything but what you have ordered me to say, worship Allah, my Lord and your Lord. And I was a witness over them as long as I was with them. Meaning, when I was with my people, I was a witness of them. None of them in my lifetime said that I'm the son of God. Na'udhu billah. But when you recalled me, meaning when you took me away, you were the watcher over them. فَكُنْتَ أَنْتَ رَقِيبُ عَلَيْهِمْ. You were the watcher over them. You are witness of all things. And the Prophet ﷺ repeated the same words. He recited this verse. He will recite this verse on the day of Qiyamah, when people will come on the Hawd, and some of the people, he will recognize them. The scholars, they differ about these hadiths, that some narrations mention that he will recognize them because of the traces of wudu, they will have light, and he will call them my companions. But the angels, they will move them away. They say, remove far away. And they will tell the Prophet, you do not know what innovations they have done after you. And the Prophet will recite the same verse, that I was a witness over them as, I will say, like the servant of Allah. And these narrations are in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim. that I was a witness over them, as long as I was with them. When Allah you took me, you are the watcher over them. So the Prophet denied his knowing. But despite this, many Muslims, they think our spiritual leader, he's witness of our matters. We have a difficulty, we should invoke him instead of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Ghaus Qutb Abdal sitting in some caves in Hira, they decide what will happen, the matters of the world, if the colonialism will be or not, who will win the war. They say it is not Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala who, all these matters have been given to saints to rule the world. And while we see the prophets negating their knowledge and being present everywhere, but despite this, my dear brothers and sisters, many of these stories are present, that even when the husband and wife are in their room, the Sufi Sheikh is present, and we should always seek help from him. Na'uzubillah. So until we do not rectify our creed, we do not understand Tawheed, then we will have success, inshallah. And I will conclude with this story, that obviously nowadays we have tafsir, we can read these verses, we can read these hadiths. But even some people who are elated, one of our Sheikh, Hafiz Muti Rahman, he mentioned a story of one of the, he could not read and write, but he was pressing the feet of his Sufi Sheikh, and he was speaking to him, complaining about his issue. His Sufi Sheikh fell asleep, and he said to him, "Oh, can you repeat to me what you were saying? Because I couldn't hear, I fell asleep." But I said, "But you telling us that even when I'm in my room, you are aware of my issues and you help me, but now you couldn't hear while asleep?" He said, "No, my eyes have opened. Before I was asleep, but now my eyes have woken up. You do not know the unseen. You cannot help me far away. It is only Allah that will save you." So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in the fitrah, and sometimes Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows his signs, his powers, and bring logically to people the Tawheed in their heart. That yes, the prophets and saints, Allah listen more to their dua, because Allah has granted them honor. Allah, miracle through them, separated the sea, and they did great miracle through there. Allah realized. And likewise the saints, the karamat of saints, Allah will sometimes save them miraculously, and they will happen, carry on up to day of judgment. But we should not invoke anyone else except Allah. And this is what the Prophet told Ibn Abbas: وَعَلَمْ أَنَّ الْأُمَّةَ لَوْ اجْتَمَعَتْ على أن ينفوك بشيء لم ينفوك إلا بشيء قد كتب الله لك وإن اجتمعوا على أن يضروك بشيء لم يضروك إلا بشيء قد كتب الله لك. It is a famous hadith in Tirmidhi. Know that the people were to gather together to benefit you with anything, they would only benefit you with something that Allah has already prescribed to you. And if they gather together to harm you with anything, they would harm you only with something that Allah has prescribed for you. So this is how the Prophet taught Tawheed to Ibn Abbas. And likewise, I will just recite a few verses. I will end up my first khutbah, and in the second khutbah, I will just conclude my speech. Bismillah wa salatu wa salam wa rasulillah. Once we realize the fact that whatever wonders we possess, it is from the bounties of Allah, we should certainly love Allah, the merciful, the beneficent. And when you love Allah, you should then seek to worship Him solely and sincerely. Many verses of the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned thanking Him. وَاشْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ إِن كُنْتُمْ إِيَّاهُ تَعْبُدُونَ. And be grateful to Allah if it is He whom you worship. وَاشْكُرُوا لِي وَلَا تَكْفُرُونَ. And be grateful to me and never be ungrateful. وَإِذْ تَأَذَّنَ رَبُّكُمْ لَإِن شَكَرْتُمْ لَأَزِيدَنَّكُمْ وَلَئِن كَفَرْتُمْ إِنَّ عَذَابِي لَشَدِيدٌ. And remember when your Lord proclaimed, if you give thanks, I will give you more of my blessing. But if you are thankless, verily my punishment is severe. Now some people like Stephen Fries and others, they will say, yeah, but the child who is born without any illness, what he has done to have this pain, Allah is unjust. No, my brothers, Allah only gives you what you can bear. And this blind child who was born bitten by a mosquito, when he will go in paradise and there will be river flowing, he will forget his 50 years of difficulties and pain. What is the eternity compared to 50, 60 years, my brothers? It is nothing. So once we understand the Tawheed of Allah, why we are living in this world is to worship Him alone. Then every blind man, every man who's handicapped, he will always find a reason to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because the greatest blessing we have, if someone says, but I don't have richness like other brothers have, I don't have health like other brothers have, I don't have children like other brothers have, so why should I thank Allah? No, because your greatest blessing Allah has given you is Tawheed. He has given you eternity. He has given you the greatest blessings which will never end. So you can never thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enough for the blessing of Iman, for giving you the religion of Islam. Many of us were born in a Muslim families. We can never thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for it. Many were converted to Islam and Allah find them some ways to guide them to Islam. They can never thank, let alone thanking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for the eyesight or for being able to walk and use our hands. Some people don't have their hands or their eyesight. So we cannot even repay Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I will conclude my khutbah with one of the verse that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Insan, Inna hadaynahu sabila imma shakiran wa imma kafura. And the scholars, they said that why the word shakir was not used in an intensive form, why the word kafur was used in an intensive form. Because you can be extremely ungrateful, but shakir, they said because the human being, in fact, can never repay what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given him. That's why the form shakir was used instead of the word shakur. Because this is how the scholars explain this verse. And I will end my khutbah on this. That يعرفون نعمة الله ثم ينكرون وأكثرهم الكافرون. That we should not, they recognize, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah Al-Nahl, they recognize the graces of Allah, yet they deny it, and most of them are disbelievers. So my brothers and sisters, the aim of this khutbah is we need to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because He has given us Tawheed. He has sent us the last of His messenger and the perfect religion. So we need to thank Him. Even if we have illnesses or losing children or families, we should always thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And by thanking Him, having reliance upon Him, all the others, Modi and all the others, Macron, inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give us strength and reliance upon Him. If we consider watcher over us all the time, whenever we have a difficulty, we remember Him instead of any peer, then inshallah every difficulty will be removed by Allah's power and grace, inshallah. ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا ومن ذريتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا وأخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إسرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين ربنا لا تزغ قلوبنا بعد إذ هديتنا وهب لنا من لدنك رحمة إنك أنت الوهاب وأقم الصلاة